Good afternoon, everyone. Popping in for our usual Sony news, rumours and other sort of news for this week. So popping in for our usual live chat. We are in pre-show, as you can see with a big pre-show sign just below me. So we've got around about 7 minutes or so. Let me just turn this off so we're not going to get annoyed with that. I think my phone's inside. Yeah, it is. My phone's inside, I think. Let me just check where that is. I hope I've left it inside. I think I have. Bear with me, guys. I'm just going to check if my phone is there. Chat amongst yourselves. Hang on, let me bring this up. Oh, no, it's all right. I'll find it. I better check because I might have left it down the shopping centre. Hang on 1 second. Found it. I've just been out for lunch with Kerry and I was worried that I had left it down the shopping centre. I thought, oh no, that'll be all I'd need. So pop in the chat and say hi. That'll go down well when people watch later on. They're going to go, what's wrong with this guy? Oh, I love it. I have got my coffee ready to open at any moment. So say hi in the chat, everyone. Let me just see who's saying hi so far. We've got Coda, although I think they were in earlier and then he realised the show didn't start until 6. Angel's here. Panda's saying no 8 p.m. Casper's saying coffee time. And yes, I said it's definitely coffee time. Chris is also saying hello, David. Rainy day in Los Angeles, but still a good Corona day. It's always a good Corona day, Chris. 42 Pro says hello all. Florio says, hey gang, Canon RP, rest in peace, launched today, yay. It's for casual family photos, soccer mums and wedding art. So I'm going to talk about that shortly, actually, Florio, just to sort of talk about that as well. I did give a sneak sort of peek at the specs yesterday, but we weren't sure. Now it's been released, I'm going to have a discussion about that coming up. How's the audio too? Because I know with Aaron the other day, it was a bit crackly when I was using this Yamaha. Is the audio okay or is it crackly? Can you let me know in the live chat, guys, before we start? Otherwise, I'll have to change it. So hopefully the audio's okay. So just give me a thumbs up or something in there just to let me know the audio's fine. Before we continue much, I'm just waiting on someone to actually comment on that to make sure the audio is all good to go. I can't sort of play it back because... what Scott's has said too, it's 2 a.m. in Scotland. I'm packing for a 4-day trip in the mountains, so I'll be watching. Oh, that'll be fantastic, Scott's. Oh, it sounds good with that. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, I think it must be something... When I had the chat with Aaron the other day when we did our usual live show, it came up with some audio issues, and I think it was because we were using Skype to come through, and it was a bit of a problem. Jealous Scots, it sounds like you're going to have a fantastic time up in the mountains. I'm definitely coming back to Scotland... might be this year or it could be early next year. David said hi from Boston. Gary said sounds good. Chris said sound good. Reuven says g'day David, always good, great being part of your live sessions. Nori Zex said been waiting for you David, it's good to see you here. Fayez says hi from Saudi Arabia to all. Zach said sounds good. David said audio okay. Charbox said just ordered the Panasonic G9 on eBay at half price. Wow, that's fantastic. Hoping it's better video AF than the GH5. Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I know it's great for stills though. The GH5 was amazing with stills. It just suffered a bit with video. I might change my glasses so I'll put these other ones on. Yuta says hello as well from Nepal. Tony says hello from Cleveland. Audio is perfect, no crackling, that's good. What else we got? Jamie said, hey, from northern New South Wales, southern Gold Coast. That'd be lovely up there, Jamie. It's a beautiful day here today as well. I've got some really great things to share with you today. While we're here, just make sure everyone is subscribing to the Photography Videography School. That's the link that you actually search for. It's Photography and Videography School. I've set this page up for you guys. So please make sure that you do subscribe. That's a photo I took of my son's wedding last Saturday. Absolutely adore it. I'm wrapped. I wasn't there to do the photography, but I took them out for 5 or 6 minutes afterwards. And I got this shot late in the day. And I'm really happy with it. In fact, the place that they got married has used that in their social media, and they want to use it for some of their advertising. So it's quite funny, really. I love it. Charbox says, why don't you update to Camlink 4K to stream in 4K? Yeah, well, I might do that one day, Charbox. At this stage, though, I'm sort of happy with just 1080p. But I may go that way one day down the line. I'm not sure. But it certainly might be something I'll do eventually. So check out the waterfall, isn't it beautiful? All handheld. Sorry, I didn't handheld it. I put the camera on a rock and exposed. The flash is what freezes Damien and Chantel. There was 2 flashes used here, hidden, and they just had to hold as still as possible. But really happy with it. So please make sure you do join that website if you can, particularly if you want to ask questions and stuff. And it really is a great site. You can see I've just posted something on there as well, saying I'm on YouTube in 5 minutes. And then we've got all stuff that's popping in all the time. Aaron is a very big poster on here, naturally, seeing we do our show together. But there's video stuff coming in. Gerald is always posting latest rumors and stuff like that as well. But, you know, there's stacks of stuff on there. It's for photographers and for videographers. So please join it. Share your website, share your Instagram feeds, share everything, guys. Unlike most channels out there, I don't stop you sharing anything apart from going live to it. So please join us in there. Great site. We're nearly up to 4,000 subscribers now. So it's growing very, very fast, and I'm very happy with it. Let me come back to the chat just to see who's here. We're still in pre-show, everyone. Let's have a look. Charles said hello from Boston, BC. G'day, Aaron. Good to see you in here. Hope everyone's having a great Valentine's Day. Obviously, that was yesterday for us. Charbox says you can't update to Camlink 4K to stream live in 4K. Can you upgrade? Is that what you're saying? I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure too whether Wirecast will even accept 4K footage. I'd have to have a look at that. Florio said, I attended the Sony event last night in Manhattan. It was great. I was blown away by the A7R3 IAF and the 70-200 GM. It locked on the model's eye even when it's really far away. Yep, the Sony IAF is the best IAF system out there. There's nothing even gets close to it. Not even remotely close. Other manufacturers are probably still 3 years away of developing IAF like Sony have got. And it just is amazing. There's nothing like it. Aaron said all thumbs up, everyone. Thanks, Aaron. Charbuck says, I'm waiting for Sony to do IAF in video for A7000. I probably will come eventually. I would say it's definitely going to come sooner or later. And the A7000 may be the first one that has it, or even the A7S III whenever that one's announced. We're still in pre-show time, guys. We're going to switch over in just a minute, actually. What is it now? It's 1 o'clock. So let me switch over to the logo and we'll have a quick start up and then we'll start the show. So bear with me just for a second. Good afternoon, everyone, or g'day from down under. Really excited about today's shows. We've got some interesting things to discuss with you all. Before we start, though, I'm just going to open up my coffee. As you know, I do share coffee with you guys every week. This isn't a malty coffee today, though. This is a coffee that you have with lemon or lime in it. It's a very special coffee, so it's not the dark malty type coffee. It's more of a tea-looking coffee, and it's quite frothy. Cheers, everyone. I can't have 2 of these, though, because I'm doing a shoot tonight. I'm actually photographing Kiara around Melbourne. If there are any local people who would love to tag along and see what we do, please get in touch with me, and you can follow around. There's no cost involved. You can just come around and watch how we work. Myself, Kerry's going to be there, and also obviously Kiara. We're going to go shooting all around some different locations in Melbourne. So if anyone does want to watch us and join, basically follow around, watch what we do, watch how I work, look at how I pose and the things that I do, feel free to pop down today in Melbourne. If you want to contact me, I can give you my number so you know where we can meet and stuff. So let me know if you'd like to do that. So let's just quickly go to the chat, guys. I just want to sort of say hi to everyone. I'm not going to go right back because we had a bit of pre-show, but I'm just seeing what people are saying. 42 Pros has said the RP is not really for anyone. Just left the door open for another camera company to crush Canon's market share. Sony is set to take it if they will produce. And I'm going to talk about the RF as the first story, actually. So we're going to go through that very, very soon. What else have we got? Norek said, would you compare the EOS RP and the new Fuji X-T30? I'm leaning more towards the Fuji, but still waiting to see what Sony has to announce. Yeah, and wait until I have that discussion. I'll just talk about that in a few minutes. Aaron said, so many people watch on 4K monitors, I may be wrong. Charbox said, the share of YouTube watch time on 4K smart TVs in 4K is growing fast. Yeah, and it will. It'll grow and grow and grow. That's for sure. I mean, I've got 4K TVs. I've got a 4K TV up there, actually, that I look at everything going on. So I do have 4K TVs, and it is going to get more and more important as time goes on. Atalia says, hello from Detroit, Michigan, you sexy ball beauty. Thanks so much for that. John says, hello from Livonia, is it, Michigan? Home of the Bates Burgers. Aaron said, laugh out loud, your coffee. Charles said, tequila shots. It's actually a Mexican coffee. I love the way I've got to say all this stuff. It's actually a Mexican coffee. Starts with C and you put lemons in it. It's a really unusual coffee. Mikkel says, hello from Dallas. Aaron says, hi, Dallas. Hello from Springfield, Virginia. So, really interesting. Now, just the warning, guys. As you can tell if you're looking at me, it's got a Sony Type A personality, and also you can see that I've got a Sony cup here. That may give you a hint that if you don't like Sony stuff, you might want to turn off now. I can't say it any more than that, because this is going to be... I am going to talk about some other things in general, but the show is more about Sony sort of rumours and stuff like that. If you want a show that's sort of more open-ended, Aaron and myself do a show on Wednesday Australia or Tuesday US time and Tuesday European time that's more general. So please watch that too, because that's more open-ended and it has more things about photography, like true photography, and we show how we shoot and stuff like that. So watch that. Now, these shows... Oh, Long Rider, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Donation already. Now, the other thing too is these discussions tend to go a little bit long, and I don't put time limits on this. If you don't like long shows, you might not want to watch, or you can watch by looking at the timeline that I post later on underneath. So I do always put a timeline underneath that says in the timeline for each story to start. So please don't get on whinging, oh, can't watch it, it's too long. Oh, I mean, just don't watch it, or look at the timeline and go to the story that appeals to you. I can't say it any more than that. I get people every week going, you expect me to watch an hour and a half. No, I don't expect you to watch an hour and a half. I'm not forcing you to watch it. But this is like me with a bunch of mates. You guys are like a bunch of mates to me. We're going to sit around looking through the stories, and I get other people saying all he does is read the stories off Sony Alpha sites. Well, it's because I like reading that stuff, and I'm going to have a discussion with you about it. It's going to be, we're going to discuss it, like I said, it's like a group of mates sitting around a table, and we're going to discuss the articles that are there, and because I discuss it, and then I open it up to the chat to get your opinion about it as well. So it's not just reading things, it's about discussing the actual article. So if you don't like that format, switch off. Cheers. And thank you so much, Long Rider, for the donation. Really appreciate that. So what else have we got? Gene says he's watching it on a 54K TV. Yep, beautiful. Rudyard said, hi, David. Colin said hello from St. Vincent. Steve said, greeting all. G'day, Steve. Charbox says, I'm watching you on my 124K projector. He said, your head is huge. I love it. Adam says, 4K is not required for a show like this. Perfect as it is now. And that's what I'm thinking. I mean, look, it may be that when I do my model shoots and things like that, you might get a benefit with 4K, but you probably don't need 4K for this. How sharp do you want this head? Oh, love it. Gerald says, hi all, audio is fine. Thanks, Gerald. Flying high, hello, and I'm listening, watching it during work. Gerald says the audio is fine. Okay, so let me just put down here, first story. Because I've got some really interesting things I want to discuss with you. But I did watch yesterday, as you know, I put up a story about the Canon EOS R RP. And that's the video before this one, actually. And it was a really good discussion. Now, I based that on the pre-release specifications. And the specifications were pretty similar. But after sort of seeing the reviews on it, I thought I'd mention what I think about the whole thing. And where I think this all fits in the whole time, or the whole thing of full frame cameras, APS-C cameras and stuff like that. So I thought we'd have a discussion like that. I did put first story in there, didn't I? Let me just check. Yes, I did. So I thought we'd discuss that because, I mean, look, there's certain aspects of the camera that I'm really disappointed in, and there's other aspects where I think it might be a great newbie camera. But let's look at it first. So let's go over to the story and just have a look at a couple of things about this first. So this is basically saying that it's announced. Now, there's a couple of amazing things about this camera if you're looking at it. The price, particularly at $1,300, is a pretty amazing introductory price for a full frame camera. Now, I know a lot of people say to me, David, but you can get an A7 II for around the same money. And yes, I understand that. But I have to be honest with you guys, if I was buying a camera from scratch, I probably would buy the EOS RP over an A7 II. And there's a couple of reasons why I say that for me. I had two A7 IIs that I used for a long time. Now, the focus is okay, but it's not that fantastic in the A7 II. The focus on this, if you're dealing with just normal photography, and you're also dealing with video, if you're dealing with 1080p, the video focus and the normal focus on this camera is going to, I believe it will beat the A7R II. There's a couple of reasons why I say that. The A7R II struggles a hell of a lot in low light, unless you're using really, really fast glass, but it still does struggle. This thing will focus down to -5 if you're dealing with low light focusing. So I think in that area, this will beat the A7 II, and you're dealing with a much more modern camera, even though it's got the sensor's not that good in it, because basically it's the 6D Mark II sensor that's in there. If you're talking about this generally how it works, I think it's a better camera than the A7R II. The other thing too, it has a flip out screen and it has a really good touch interface that is great for focus and moving around menus. So there are features in this where I would say get this over an A7 II. I wouldn't probably get this over an A6400 though, due to the fact that the sensor is just nowhere near as good. The dynamic range is not going to be anywhere near as good. The video focus is not going to be anywhere near as good, particularly if you're talking about 4K out of the EOS R compared to, say, the A6400. But it does have that fold-out screen, and this is where I think that a lot of people coming in, newbies that are just buying into the market, that don't have really any camera knowledge at all, and they're just coming into a camera shop to say, what should I buy? Canon is a big name. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, disagree with me about that, but Canon is the #1 name that's out there. So it does have that immediate pull straight away. It also has that fold-out screen, which means that when the salesman grabs that screen and he pulls it out to the side, and they can see this massive screen on the side fold back to them, and they can do selfies, that is also going to mean a really big thing for vloggers. Now, a lot of vloggers only need 1080p. And this camera is going to be fine if you're dealing with 1080p. Yes, you can't use 24, and I'm going to talk about the specs in a minute. But I know I was talking with Photomiak yesterday, and he said that he only shoots in 30p anyway whenever he's doing his YouTube stuff. So I don't think 30p is any of an issue for that aspect. And remember, a lot of people don't look at specs, particularly newbies, when they come in. They look at the name, they look at what their friends are using, and like so many people out there have things like Canon cameras, like things like Rebel cameras, which I think this is sort of aimed at. So if you're dealing with something that's an entry-level price camera, I think this is probably going to sell very well. As you know, I'm dying to get a camera with a fold-out screen, and yesterday when I was looking at the specs for this, I thought I might even buy one of these for my YouTube channel, but after looking at the release specs, I don't think I will. I'm definitely going to wait and see what Sony have to announce with their A7000 or A7S III before I jump the gun, I think. But let's look at this anyway. So let's look at the specs for this, and then I'll open it up to the chat with you guys so we can all have a look. So they're saying competition use, and they're saying it's $1,300. Now, if you buy this straight away, I believe you get the adapter, so you can use EF lenses, and you also get the grip, I believe, at the same time. That is a really good saving. I believe it's a $300 saving. I'm not sure if it's only... oh yeah, I'm just reading there. Includes total value of $178. So it's saying that you get the choice of an extension grip, black, blue, or red, and you also get the Canon EOS, the EOS R adapter for the EF mount, which is fantastic. And I believe that's only up until March or something, or the end of March, that you can get that. So that's fantastic, because there's a couple of things about this that if you're buying this camera and you want to not spend more money, like not purchase the expensive R lenses, apart from the 35 1.8, which seems like a good 35 that's not so expensive, you can use the adapter that's included here and put that onto the EOS RP, and you can use all your Canon glass. And there is very, very cheap glass out there to be able to use this. You know, you can get lenses for $100, $150. There's so many Canon lenses out there, so that's one of the big advantages. And everything I've seen, I use the EOS R in the camera store with the adapter with an EF lens, and it does seem to work like a native lens. So, and I'm sure this system will probably work as well. So you do not have to spend a lot of money to get into this and use your EF lenses if you want to do it cheaply. And that's one other big advantage about this. So that's one great thing. But there's a big downfall to that. I believe if you're shooting video with the adapter using EF lenses, it crops it to 720p, which is nuts. And I can't understand why Canon do this all the time. Why are they stopping the camera from being used effectively? In other words, they're saying you can use your EF lenses, but if you want to do that in video, you're going to be stuck in 720p. I mean, Canon, come on, like, seriously, like, this is 2019 and you're shooting and you're forcing someone with an adapter to use 720p. So that is a real bummer. So that's an issue. But if you're doing it for photography, there's not going to be really any penalty, and it will work fine. It's only if you're shooting video. So let's go and have a look at a couple of the specs of this, though. I thought what we could do is look at this. So you're dealing there that the price, we'll compare this to the EOS R. So the price of the RP is, obviously, this is Australian, so ignore it. It's $1,300 US. You're seeing that's the Australian price that we're looking at there. But you're dealing with the sensor is a 26 megapixel full frame. It looks like it's the same sensor that's in the 6D Mark II. You've also got 4,779 selectable points. You've got more in the EOS R. It's got the same ISO. You've got 4 frames per second, 5 frames per second in the EOS R. You've got the viewfinder, which is probably the same as what we've got in the A7 III, as against the much better viewfinder in the EOS R. You've got dual sensing IS up to 5 stops, and that does work very, very well. You've got the same in the EOS R. Movie is crop 4K 24p and 100 megabits per second. It's much better in the Canon EOS R though, because you've got much higher megabits per second. You've got up to 480 there, 4K 30 and also 25p. as well. A slightly smaller LCD monitor, and it's also got less resolution as well. And the weight is 485 grams. So they're looking at the actual overall specifications roughly. I'm not going to go through everything because it's been reported all over the place. So there's a couple of issues here that I can see that, and I don't know why Canon does this. I really don't understand why Canon does this. I think if they can't improve their sensors, they seriously should do something like use Sony sensors, and I don't know why that they don't even look at that when you think other manufacturers are obviously using Sony sensors. Panasonic's using other sensors than their own. I really think it's getting to the point now that they probably should start to think about that if they can't have enough R&D to produce sensors. To bring out a camera that has a sensor that old is crazy, I think. That the issue here is that you get stuck because it's the dynamic range that really suffers in this, and this is what's happened because they've used that older sensor. The dynamic range is going to be not very good if you compare it to, say, what Sony have announced. The ISO is going to be nowhere near as good as what Sony have got, and you can guarantee that the rolling shutter is going to be terrible on this camera. So, you know, there's some really interesting things there that I just don't understand why Canon do this. It hasn't been mentioned yet, but there will be that ridiculous crop of probably 1.7 in 4K, and you lose phase detect autofocus in 4K. I mean, Canon, what are you thinking and why are you doing that? I still don't think this is going to affect sales, though. I do think this thing is going to sell very, very well because, like I said, it's a real base camera, and this is aimed like Canon's Rebel line. And I think that it will sell like crazy, and I really do think it may hurt Sony, even though in a lot of ways the specs suck. And I really do believe this, that the users out there, because I deal with them all the time, guys. I deal with people asking me all the time, what should I get? And I can tell you that anyone coming into the marketplace at the beginning has no idea whatsoever about specifications or how they work. Like I said, they'll go by what their friends shoot. They'll also go by what the store recommends, and they'll look at something like that fold-out screen and they're going to go, oh, beauty, because everyone is into vlogging now and all that sort of stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if this sells better than the A6400. It doesn't beat the A6400 in any aspect apart from the fact that it's a full-frame camera and you'll get a full-frame look if you're dealing with photography. But the second you go to video, you're far better off to go for the Sony A6400 than you are to go for the Canon EOS RP. The only real thing I think this is for, if you're shooting JPEG, the Canon is fantastic for just shooting straight to JPEG. The results will be terrific straight out of camera. We know that the colours do look gorgeous like Sony do now, but we know that the colours do look gorgeous straight out of the Canons. So it will be great if you're going straight to JPEG, and if you're doing vlogging and you just want to shoot in 1080p and you've got the phase detect dual pixel autofocus on you and you can see what you're doing and you know you're going to be in focus, and that's all you require. It's got a headphone socket, it's got a microphone socket, so it certainly has, and I believe it's certainly a better vlogging camera than what the A6400 is. That's for sure. I definitely believe that if you want to shoot in 1080p. So there's some interesting things about that. Before I open it up to the chat, though, I just wanted to go and show you the lenses, because then we'll open it up to the chat on this. But a couple of amazing things about this range of cameras, the RPs or the R line, is the incredible lenses that Canon are announcing. Take a look at this. This is ridiculous, and Sony really should take note of this. Have a look at the size of the 70-200 2.8. Lens that is going to be announced, released sometime this year. It's nuts how small that is. You can compare the size on the left to the size on the right of what a normal lens is. Now I think this probably is a barrel type lens where it's going to move in and out depending on how you focus. But I know, and then a lot of purists are going to come up and say, I don't want a lens that's going to suck dust in. Well, I've had lenses like that for years and I've never had a problem. You may have, I don't know, but I would much prefer this than lugging around a massive lens like the 70-200 is at the moment, where you can put this in your camera bag and it just fits in a normal lens part of your camera bag, just like my Profoto B10 does. And you can go around minimalistically and probably carry one bag instead of dragging around, this really amazingly big lens. Canon have hit they seem to be hitting it out of the ballpark, their lenses. If you look at this one, I'll just show you all of them here. You've got the 70-200 2.8, which is what I just showed you, which is just ridiculously small in size. And that shows the size there that you're looking at. If you look at this next one, you've got the 24-70. You've also got the 15-35 lens here as well. These are all 2.8. You've got the 85 1.2. Now there's two versions of this 85. There's this version, and then there's also this one that has defocus smoothing. This would be the one that I particularly would be interested in getting. And this is one reason why I would love to get a Canon lens, due to the fact I've always wanted the 85 1.2, just as a point of difference. And I'd love to have a look at this. Now, I'm dying to see how this is in reviews, this 85 defocus smoothing lens, just to see how the bokeh and everything looks. It may give a similar result to the STF, I'm not sure, but I'm really sort of excited to have a look at that. And then you've got this one, which is the 24-240. F4 to 5.6 coming out as well. So in the lens department, Canon really have blown everything away, I think. You know, the 50 1.2, their 85 1.2, their 24-70 f2 lens. I mean, they seriously have amazing lenses, and if they can bring out a high-end full-frame camera that has IBIS, that has dual card slots, that has the 4K without a crop, it's going to be incredible when you tie it up with these lenses. So let me open it up to the chat, because I'd love to know what you guys think about it. If you could too, guys, I'd really appreciate it if you could give me a thumbs up. Just lets people know that I'm online. So let me see what people are saying. I know most people are going to slam this this camera. I love it. Peter says, every time a Canon releases a camera, my A7 III looks better and better. How good is the A7 III release? I mean, we now understand how good that camera actually is, and it still is the best full-frame camera out there, for the price particularly. Gerald says, if you go back to Scotland, let me know. I would love to join you there. Have lots of friends there. Oh, cool, Gerald. Hero said, greetings all. I finally splurged and got my 70-200 f4. I love that lens, Hero. I'll be using that tonight, as a matter of fact, when I photograph Kiara. Jason said, Canon is masterful at two things, making quality glass and crippling cameras. I know, why do they do it? Why have they got such beautiful glass and then they totally cripple their cameras? This release really is like an M50. It's like the full frame M50. And did someone mention that somewhere down there, I think? It really is like a full frame M50. Hero says, the new Canon cam is a waste of damn lenses, are going to cost 2 times what the body costs. I just bought the A7 II at $900 second hand with a 51.8. Nice. Andrew said, trading my A7 III for the new EOS RP. You're not, are you, Andrew? Really? I wouldn't be doing that. No way. Paul said, Canon are criminals. The price is not amazing considering the sensor and the crippled video. It depends. So, Paul, if you're just using this for photography, it's a very good camera for stills, and I think it will be quite good. It's not going to have the dynamic range, remember, that the Sony cameras have, but it's going to be a good entry-level full-frame camera that gives you reasonable quality for people that aren't professionals. You would not buy this camera if you're a professional, that's for sure, for shooting stills. Chowbox said, Canon's criminality is that it's a single SD card slot, 1.8 times crop in 4K and no AF in 4K. Yeah, and like I said, it's crazy what Canon do. You know, it really is. Stephen said he wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. Andrew said, Sony just need to add a flip-up screen and better touch screen. UI, boom, adios Canon. WN said, hard to beat the brand new A7 II for $800 United States. Full frame and IBIS, better lenses, better adaptive choices. It's like I said, WN, though, that's a personal choice. If I was just coming into photography now, I would buy the RP over an A7 II. due to the focus. The problem with the R2 is low light focusing, and that's the issue. The focusing on the Canon is going to be way better than what the A7 II is. Charbox said, I started video blogging in 4K 4 years ago. Canon don't do 4K. Chris said, I've already seen some Canon channels disown the RP over not having 24p 1080. It's a big deal for many vloggers. Joe Blow won't care. And they won't. That's what I mean. They won't care. But I still don't know why Canon have done that. I really do not understand why Canon have done that. Gary said, I think it will be a good first camera for somebody mainly shooting stills. This is like their Rebel. It's exactly like their Rebel. You know, and this might be something that Canon update every year. It'll be interesting to see. Stephen said, I will stick with my XT2 and the XT Pro. Nothing wrong with those cameras. G'day, Diana. WN said, Peter McKinnon will love it because it will challenge him even more. I know the interesting thing is when you're going to start to see the Canon reps, you know, the ones that are paid by Canon, start to say that it's a great camera. Well, wait, and you probably will see that. I don't know how they're going to say it, though, but it will be interesting. And, yeah, Peter, it'll be interesting to see how he spins that one. I'll take my A7 III over the Canon CRAP any day. I really do hope they firmware update for all of this. Well, hopefully they will, Diana, but I wouldn't hold your breath. Chris said 720p is for EFS. Oh, okay. Oh, thanks for that, Chris. So you do get a 1080 from EF lenses. Someone said, I saw a review yesterday and someone mentioned that if you put an EF lens on it, you couldn't select 1080. So if someone else knows that, I'd be interested. So if it is only EFS, that's not a big problem. Paul said it's not a good beginner camera because they're leading them down the path of frustration. I'm surprised that Matt went off on this camera today. Perhaps, you know what, some people may be starting to wake up because I know when recently when Peter went on about the other camera, the EOS R, I know he got so much flack over that perhaps they've now thought, whoa, it may not be worth the hassle of not probably telling the truth. Because, and this is the issue with it all, you know, this is the interesting thing about this has gone. And this is why I can tell you two things. This is why I'm very happy that Manny Ortis has basically now not working for Sony anymore. He's no longer a artisan or whatever you want to call them. And also Jason Lanier as well has now said he's going to be reviewing other cameras as well. Because so they're the sort of guys that you can believe because they're not tied to the camera company and they can say whatever they like. And this is the interesting thing about that. And you're going to get more truthful reviews from someone like, say, Manny and Jason, and even me, because I'm not paid by Sony. So you're going to get more truth from someone like us that are totally neutral about things than someone that is definitely tied into the manufacturer. Because the problem is, guys, if you're tied to the manufacturer, you do have to be careful what you say. Because if you want to get that gear and you want the support from that manufacturer, you will not get that if you're tied to them. And you've got to understand that. That's why Peter, I'm sure, went on about Canon the way he did last time. And we know those people are all through YouTube. And that's the problem with it. So that's something that you do have to consider. And that's why I was so happy when Manny did that. And that's why I was so happy when Jason recently pointed out too that he was going to be reviewing all other cameras because they're no longer tied to that aspect of it. And they're the people that you should be looking at when you're looking for reviews. Look for people that are totally unbiased. They're not being paid by that company, and they'll give you a true review of what that camera is. And I'm going to start doing that soon too. I'm going to, even if I have to, that's why I want Patreon to grow, because the money that I make in Patreon, I'm going to try and start hiring all these other cameras for you and lenses, like the Sigma lenses for the Sony. I'd love to try the Fuji. I'd love to try the Canon cameras and review it for you as a Sony user. And that's why I'm so hoping Patreon takes off for me, or even PayPal. But I want to use that money to get that type of gear. So think about that when you are supporting YouTubers, guys. We all know Photomic's not sponsored by anyone out there. So what he says about Canon is or Nikon is always truthful, because he's got no reason to lie, because Nikon don't pay him anything. What else have we got? Everyone's saying it is EFS, not EF. So that's interesting. Cheers, everyone. I hope Canon does an M60 with perfect 4K 60, no crop, perfect dual pixel, dual card slots, and unlimited recording. That's the other thing Canon did. They've put a time limit on this, guys. Oh, I nearly died when I saw that. When you look at the A6400 and they've released that without a time limit, why would Canon put a time limit on that camera? There's no need to do that anymore, obviously. If Sony are not doing it, why have Canon done that? And that is really disappointing. Stephen said Canon are recently notorious for making people scratch their heads. Diana said, I'll stick with my M50 and speed booster. Who would have guessed the M50 better than the RP? No dual AF for 4K video. Yeah, it's only contrast detection, and that's another stupid thing. I don't know whether the processor can't take this or what. There's got to be a reason why Canon are holding that back, and I just cannot understand that at all. Rick said, hi Dave, from Brooklyn. Rui says, just joining in. G'day Rui. Diana says, is it only the 1.6 crop or something like a crop on top of the crop? Well, I think it's only the 1.6 crop. So you could say it's basically giving you Super 35, which is 1.5. It's actually a bit worse than that. So I'm pretty sure it's just that, I think. Someone else may be able to chime in on that as well. Chris said, God help Canon if Sony or Nikon ever put a flip-out screen. I know, exactly. Jake said, I think Jared said it was a 1.76 crop. That's a pretty severe crop, isn't it? Paul says, why did they put that Oh, no, that's the other thing that I forgot to mention. The battery sucks in that camera. You're dealing with 250 shots. Now, look, you'll get way more than that, yes. But if you're dealing with videography, you're getting back to, like, the days of the A7 II battery, which, you know, you used to have to carry around 4 or 5 of them if you were dealing with video. I don't understand that either. Can't wait to see the A7000. Neither can I. Diana said, I love Panasonic, so did I. Wish they'd do phase detect. So do I. I really do. Tim said, the EOS RP is a fantastic looking entry camera for students only, for photography though. Yeah, and it is. It's a good photography. When I say it's a good entry level photography that gets you into the Canon system. I think what Canon are thinking here is they've decided to say, I don't want people to go and buy the A6400, so we're going to try and give them something that will make people buy into the Sony ecosystem. And then hopefully they'll buy the dearer lenses and they'll buy the dearer bodies that come out later on. And I think that's all this camera is tailored at this stage. What else? I'm just going to scroll down, otherwise we're going to be here for 5 hours. Rick said it's a digital ES6D. Yep, I agree. Diana said, Tony Northrup made one good point in his stream saying Canon did this to deflect sales from APS-C. And that's what I just said, actually, Diana, and I agree with that. I think this is totally to stop people jumping into the XT3 and also into the Sony A6400. That's all this is designed for. And I'd love to know if you guys think that that's what they're aiming at here, because I'd be really curious to know. Jake said it will have terrible rolling shutter. Yep, it will. It'll be awful. What else have we got? 85 1.2, I'd love that lens, and the 50 1.2, beautiful. I used the 50 1.2 the other day. It's outstanding. That lens is outstanding. James said, I've never bought a 70-200 2.8 class lens in my 38 career long history. Over too many brands in the hobby. This new Canon Shorty looks very tempting. I know, how good is that lens? It's incredible that when you look at that lens, which one was it? Where are we here? If you look at that lens and how small that actually is ridiculous. I mean, you've got to give it to Canon that they're lens design and their thinking in lens is probably the best that's out there. It really is, and you have to give it to Canon in that regard. They really do make excellent lenses. I've always said that, even when I shot Nikon. Fathom Rocker said, I can see paying more than for 120 1080p, but not 24 frames per second. Canon has it backwards. Yeah, I don't know why they've kept out the 24 frames per second. It's odd. That is really odd. G'day, Oreo. Good to see you in here. Yusuf said, where did you hear about this 51.1? I'm going to talk about that shortly, Yusuf. So just hang on for that. Long Rider says, David, and thanks for the donation, mate. I am not a Canon user, but there is an audience for inexpensive full-frame cameras. I agree with you, and that's why I said I think this will sell like crazy. 80% of people live paycheck to paycheck. Saving $500 from the A7 III is a trip to Disneyland for someone's family. And I agree totally with you. And this is why I said the other day, someone said, why wouldn't you just buy an A7 III? And I said, there's a $500 difference. That's a lot of money for some people. And it will make a difference. If you're only into photography, like I said, people are not like us. They are not tech geeks. Most people just coming into photography, they just want to buy a camera that they can use for their family and things like that. And this will sell. I guarantee that this will sell. Tim said, if Sony offered an A77 flip-out mod for my A7 III, I'd pay $4,000 for it. Many people just like Canon because of the flip screen. Yep, and I'm jealous of it, Terry. I have to admit that I'm very, very jealous of it. Diana says, I don't like when reviewers sugarcoat it. Let us know up front. We are spending our hard-earned dollars. We might still get the gear, but we need truly honest reviews. And unfortunately, Diana, a lot of the reviewers out there aren't. And a lot of the reviewers out there aren't real photographers either. That's another thing that you have to consider when you're looking at this as well. Look for the photographers that do gear reviews, but also look for the photographers and videographers that actually show their work instead of ones that just do gear reviews. And this is one thing that I always am amazed about, is that sometimes you take this review as gospel, but then that person that's reviewing it hasn't got any work to show at all. So how can you tell that what he's saying is true? Just because they give you facts like DxO mark and all this sort of stuff and these scientific reviews, you're better off to see a real shot in real life practice. And I'm not talking like when Sony do things and they have 20 photographers shooting the same thing with perfect lighting coming in and all that sort of stuff. I'm saying like what Jason does and like what Manny does and even like what I do. Go out to the street, shoot it in real life, and then show those results in real life, because that means that lens works fully as you'd expect it to, not with perfect lighting and things like that, you know. And they're the reviewers that you should be actually supporting. There's so many reviewers out there on YouTube now that aren't actually reviewers, shooters. And I'm not talking about camera conspiracies when I do that, because he is a totally different ball game. I just love that guy's channel. I'm not talking about him. He doesn't come on and say that he's a shooter, though. He talks about it from his aspect of the gear for him, not what others should be buying. So that's a totally different thing. Norik said, I'm glad Manny stopped being a Sony fanboy. Gerald says, I also think sadly it will sell better than the A6400. The Canon name and advertising is massive, and that is very, very true. I know we're taking a while on this, but it is interesting. Jake said, I literally chose my A1000, it's the D5100 for a photo shoot the other day over my D500 because of the flip screen. Like I said, Jake, I'm hanging out for a flip screen like crazy, and it's doing my head in that Sony won't bring one out. Diana said, that flip screen is vital for me as a solo creator. I like the menu system too. Ken Rockwell is the only one people should listen to. He isn't bought like the others. I got called Ken Rockwell today. I got called Ken Rockwell because I was reviewing the Canon the other day and I didn't have it, and it was quite funny. And I thought the interesting thing was, and this is what I truly believe, I have been a photographer for as long as I can remember, and I've used that much gear and everything else, and I am a full-time wedding and portrait photographer, and I'm also getting pretty good at video as well. I can talk about a camera from specs and give you an idea about my thoughts on that. And that's why I don't understand when people go, oh, you haven't got it in your hands. You can still talk about what you think it's going to work and how it's going to fit you as a rumor or as a site when something's released like this Canon RP. I can still talk to you about it, about the way I think it will perform from my experience. And that's the thing that you good reviewers can do that. And it's interesting. So I did get called Ken Rockwell today, and I laughed. What else have we got? Wow, the Tamron 51.2. Can't wait to hear about that. It's not a Tamron. Paul said, this cannot stop the XT3 or A6400. No, it won't. They'll still sell very, very well. Gerald says the high-end Canon will have to come. Will have to come. Yeah, and I'm sure, Gerald, it will. And I'd say sometime this year. I'd be very surprised if Canon don't release a high-end Canon this year. Those lenses that they've released need a high-end version of that. And I have to be honest, that might be something I'll purchase. If Sony do not give me... Oh, excuse me, I'm burping, you know what. If Sony do not give me a fold-out screen... if Canon bring out a high-end camera that has IBIS, dual card slots, and a fold-out screen and 4K with actual phase detect, I'd probably buy it. I'm hoping Sony do something, though, with the A7S III or the A7000 first, though. What else have we got? Oreo said that new Canon 70-200 is short only when it's 70mm. Yeah, I said it extends, Oreo. And that is very bad for both sealing of the lens, dust, and for balance on a gimbal. The thing too is, that wouldn't worry me. I've had lenses like that before, and I've never had an issue with dust, Oreo, but some say they have. I would buy that lens just to stick in my camera case so I could travel minimalistically. And I'd love a 2.8 version that I could just stick in your normal lens pouch in a bag and not have to carry such a big lens. I think that would be fantastic. But like I said, Oreo, we all want different things. I never ever put a 70-200 2.8 on a gimbal. I would mostly use my 28-75 Tamron, which is very, very light and small. Aaron said, like you said, Canon is just hitting the new dudes. That's why they're all dumbing down. I'm going to move on in a minute, guys, but this is a very interesting discussion. John's just saying hi. Erica said, laugh out loud. Camera conspiracy is so funny, like watching The Onion. I love that guy. He cracks me up. Maybe Sony doesn't do a flip screen because a lot of people like the 3-axis screen. I don't think so. They know we want it. Aaron says, I prefer the trombone-style zoom lenses as well if it makes them pack smaller. Paul said, Canon is getting a bad rep and it's only a matter of time before it filters down to the newbies. Jake says, almost every video I watch and have been waiting tons lately mention they want a flip screen. It's because people you're watching are like me and they're vloggers. They like to do things on YouTube and stuff. So we may have different needs than what the average photographer needs, for instance, Jake, and that's probably why. Jacob says, I'm leaning towards the A7 III for photography and cinematography. No, that is an incredible camera, Jacob. You can't go wrong with that camera at all. It's amazing, and it's still an incredible camera even today. You still can't buy it directly in the shops. You've often got to wait for it. Gerald says, yes, Canon knows there are more sales opportunities at the low-end price of the market, keeping their flock at home and selling more lenses where they make more money from bodies. Exactly. Last couple before we move on. 42 Pro says, if Sony would release an A5 full-frame type camera with a flip-out screen, the other companies would have to fight for second place. They would. And I don't know why Sony don't do it. I really don't. At least bring one camera out with it. Aaron said, Canon is making exciting lenses. Sony lenses usually work great, but they're not exciting. The Canon lenses certainly are very, very exciting. Michael said, g'day, Michael. The camera is so crippled, my guest... My great-grandmother can move faster in a wheelchair. 3 to 4 frames per second in tracking. What camera out there took out 24 frames? Oh, no, and I don't understand that either. I really don't. All right, let's go on to the next story. That was a long discussion. I'm going to get abused. I know I'm going to get abused. All right, so let's go on to this because this is exciting for me, particularly. We're going to talk about this. The Sony A9 firmware. It's not released yet, but they've actually put out the presentation file to tell you the things that this Sony firmware is actually going to do. And I'll put all these links down below so you can have a read about this. I did put next story there, didn't I? Yes, I did. So it's basically using artificial intelligence. That's the thing that is coming out of all of this. Now, if you look at it, if you read all of this, you can see that the difference here too, and this is why the A9 is going to be like a totally brand new camera. There's going to be nothing out there that can even get anywhere near it, I don't believe, for quite a while. Probably until they bring out an A9 II. This is going to be the standard of autofocus. Because you've got to understand too that, and it says this down here, that the A9's ability to make as many as 60 AF calculations per second this is the reason why the Sony A9 is unbelievably fast in what it does. Because every second it's doing 60 AF frame calculations per second. That's 60. That is just unbelievable. Now the big difference here is that this new system, and you can see this little dialer box over here. This new system, let me just blow this up a little bit so that we can do it. I'll show you a little bit larger. So this new system has face detect like what the A7 III has, for instance, and it also has eye detect. But the massive difference here is that it's actually now starting to use what they call this color, pattern, and distance in its calculating. This is why the tracking is going to be game-changing in the Sony A9, because it's basically using all of these 5 things to get your tracking. I'm going to reduce this down again so that I can show you the whole article. Let me just move this in. So this is the main difference between any other camera. Now, you can just use the back screen. They're also adjusting the Sony A9 so you can just touch onto the object on the back screen and then it will track that object. Now, the beauty here is that its first point of reference is going to be the eye. So the second it sees an eye, it's going to grab the eye. Then if it loses the eye, it will grab the face. Then if it loses the face, it's going to track to the body. And that will even work if you turn sideways. I've even seen it grab the eye if you turn sideways. But the second it loses eye autofocus, it will then grab the face, and then it's going to grab the tracking of the whole body. And the interesting thing is here, and I'll show you another article in a minute, but the interesting thing here is that it's very, very sticky, way stickier than what you had in previous tracking modes on the... because particularly in the video, the tracking on the A9 in video was pretty terrible, the lock-on tracking. The flexible tracking was quite good, but nowhere near what this is going to give you. The other thing too is it's saying in here that you get real-time IAF tracking. Now, the interesting thing here is this saves you a button. So the great thing about this now is that you can just half press the button or use the AF on at the back and it will immediately grab IAF. And then move to those other modes after that. So you can save a button press, in other words. You don't have to any longer have a quick key, one of your custom keys, set to IAF. Like for me, for instance, I've got the C1 or the AEL actually for IAF. So I no longer have to do that anymore. It will work directly from your half press or the AF on button. Now, that's fantastic because it saves you that button for starters, but I've also worked out now that I very rarely ever use AFS anymore, and to be honest, I can't even remember the last time I did go in AFS. I nearly just use AFC the whole time now with my A9 and the A7 III, because the AFC is so good that I no longer have to use that anymore. Well, I think the days of having AFS, particularly with this new firmware that's coming out, is really limited. I suppose you could still do it if it's a static subject or if you're in studio, but like I said, I don't even do that now when I'm in studio, and I never ever change anymore off AFC. I just leave it on AFC, and I think you're going to find that this particularly, there's going to be no reason to ever probably take it off AFC and just let the autofocus work as it needs to. It certainly is dumbing it down in a lot of ways though, because this certainly is taking away most of the need to manually focus and do things like that, or say use zones and things like that, because you really can trust the tracking from what I've seen. And believe me, the second this is announced or released, I'll be doing a video on it and showing you guys how it works anyway. But from what I've seen in all the reviews, it really does take out that need to reframe, you know, compose and reframe and do things like that. The tracking is that good, and it seems to be very, very sticky. A lot of people are saying the A9 particularly is way ahead of what we're getting on the A6400, and people are saying the A6400 is very good. So I just can't wait to see how good this is when it comes out. So that's the IAF. It's saving you a key, which is also fantastic. The other thing too is you're getting this next generation AF control, and it's saying it can be initiated for any subject in the monitor simply by touching the subject in the monitor. So you just touch it and that will activate it, which is fantastic. And what else is it saying? There's also fast hybrid AF. Now provides smooth, accurate focus for moving, shooting, and improved implementation of the focal plane phase detect AF. But there's also something, oh no, it's down here, I was going to mention this. It's saying that it reduces the need to manual focus adjustments. Also, you're getting this My Dial, so you can change your dials on your camera. So in other words, you can use your dials, these dials, here and on the back for different custom functions. And that's what that is actually talking about through here. Through that section there. You can have the front dial, the rear dial, and the control wheel all have totally independent functions that you can set. The easier custom functions now are graphical. So again, you're looking at that here where you're seeing things graphical and it shows you the button and what's actually on that button. That is so much better than anything Sony have done up to this stage, and that is a really amazing feature. That's on the A6400 as well, but you won't get this on the A7 III or the A7R III. This is also interesting too, because this actually here, let me just move that down a little bit. This AF area circulation is saying this new setting allows the AF area to position to be quickly circulated to the upper, lower, left or right edges of the frame. This makes it easier to select appropriate AF area for sports and situation. In other words, it's like your zone setting. So you're going to have a very quick way of selecting zones on this if you did want to track things very, very quickly in corners, top, left, bottom and right. So that's fantastic as well. You're getting an enhanced media dual slot operation where you can get much more control of flow and things like that. You are getting rating for the first time in the A9, and you're also getting the FTP transfer for sports and things like that as well. Interesting too, it's saying in version 5 you're getting smoother, more natural gradients. So you're getting better raw files out of your camera, and you notice that in gradients in the sky. And that's also a fantastic thing. It's saying you're going to get the full frame potential. It's going to improve the full frame potential, more natural tonal gradations. Also, the upgraded algorithm will also prevent automatic white balance variations between continuous bursts. In other words, sometimes you had the burst and it would change between bursts. This is going to stop that, so you'll get more continuous color, which is also fantastic. And it says the update also adds automatic white balance lock capability, and don't forget that we're also getting this brand new app as well. Now lastly on this, before I open it up to some questions, I noticed DP Review and did a video on this, and they also did a this manual review talking about, and like I said, I'll put these in the review down below, guys, for you. DP Review put this out to show how amazing the actual tracking is, and I'm not going to show you the whole thing because I'll leave the link down below. But the thing that you're getting out of this is the way that they're saying how sticky this is compared to the previous Sony eye detection, and how well this works, switching between the eye to the face to the full body tracking and things like that, and how you can save your quick menu keys and stuff. So that's a great article if you do want to read how this machine learning actually works. And they're saying they got this from thousands and thousands of faces and animals and objects, because the tracking even works for objects as well. It just doesn't work for people. If you click on an object, it will track that object as well. And you know, it's just amazing. I'm so excited about this update and I can't wait. The one thing I can say here, for the first time, Sony have given us basically a brand new camera with this firmware update. And I have to thank Sony so much for that. And I can't wait to see it because it looks like this new update is sticky as. It will hold onto the object. The face tracking and the eye tracking is going to be like nothing out there. And this is one thing I can say to you. If you've got the money to buy the A9, particularly if you see it at a bit cheaper price now that you do get for some of these cameras, it really is going to be in another league. It's still my favourite camera. The A9 now at the moment is still my favourite camera, and this is going to take it to a whole new league. And I've even thought about buying a second one instead of waiting for another camera to come out because I love it so much for video. And I may decide that if Sony don't release something really outstanding, it might be that I buy another A9 and live with not the fold-out screen. But if the tracking's as good as they say it's going to be, it might be a dream come true for people like me that do weddings and videos and everything else. So I'm so excited about it. Unfortunately, if you've got the A7 III, you're not going to get this. Now, guys, please don't whinge about that in the fact that I see so many people carrying on whinging about it. You've got to understand that that is Sony's entry-level camera. And even the A7 III has been out for quite a while. The processor on that camera probably can't handle it. And this is the thing that you've got to understand, that probably the reason why they're not giving you that in the A7 III and the A7 III is due to the processor is not able to handle it. And you've also got to remember the A9 is getting it because it's probably got the better processor, but also that sensor is so far ahead of anything else out there. So sometimes you have to just say, well, I've got to live with it. At least you're getting the new eye tracking and the new animal eye tracking, which is going to be amazing. But clearly you're not going to get the new tracking advancements that you're getting in the A9. And I think you're just going to have to live with that. Stop whinging about it and just be happy that you've got this amazing Sony camera that you've got, the A7 III or the A7 III, and you are going to get an amazing update for eye autofocus. So I'm going to open it up to the chat about that just to see what you guys are saying. Why I have another drink in my coffee. Casper said this A9 update will be all camera makers, and I can't wait. Honestly, I'm so excited about getting that update. I just can't wait for it. Visual said, how fast Sony ideal for studio works, as I prefer Nikon and Canon for studio and Sony for outdoors. Wow. No, I've never had a problem shooting studio stuff with the Sony at all. Works fantastic, as a matter of fact. Paul said, Sony lenses are just as good as these new RF lenses optically. The difference between f1.4 and 1.2 is not that big. Well, it is. I mean, it is. There is a big difference between 1.2 and 1.4. I mean, it's like I shoot the 1.8. There's definitely a difference between the 1.8 Sony lens and the 1.4. I shoot the 1.8 because that's what I choose to shoot with. I can still see a difference between the 1.4 and the 1.8 Sony 85 though. Just like you'll see a difference between the 1.4 and the 1.2, Paul. There is a difference. I wouldn't say that the Sonys are as good optically as the Canon. That'll have to be tested. There's nothing wrong with the G Master lenses. They are amazing. But I think the Canon lenses are a step above what the Sony lenses are, particularly if you look at, say, like that the 2470 f2 lens, the 85 1.2, the 50 1.2. You really should go and try those lenses, Paul, to see that they are outstanding. Richard said, I'd like to see Sony come out with new firmware for the A6500. I don't think we're going to see that, Richard, though, unfortunately. Jake said, Sony alien technology. I love it. So Michael says, the Sony A9, the new nickname will be the Beast Slayer. It is literally like getting a new camera. I just can't wait for that. Casper said, Michael, people just don't understand just how amazing the A9 is. And I don't think I agree with you, Casper. I don't think people do. It is just outstanding what that camera can give you. I just love using it. It's still the favourite camera I've ever had. Jake said, pretty amazing improvements they are making in firmware alone. I know, I would have paid for it. If Sony had said to me, you need to pay $100, $200 for that firmware update for the A9, I would have paid for it out of a heartbeat. I would have just paid for it. Paul said, the only camera out there that could make me sell my A7 III is the A9, especially if they add the picture profiles. I don't think they're going to add that though, Paul, unfortunately. I don't use it though. I shoot everything standard. Check out my videos that I've shot recently and tell me they don't look beautiful with a standard profile. Check out the recent video I did with Kate. Wait for the video I'll post of Kiara that I'll do tonight. G'day Panda, how are you? Gordon said, I think the successor to the A9 next year will be the first camera to have a global shutter system. Might be a bit early for you yet though, Gordon, but you never know. John said, I wish Sony would come out with a better touchscreen, so do I. Michael said, yeah, PP on the A9, I don't see Sony being that nice. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen too either. G'day Phonomiac, how are you? He said Nikon. I was just talking about that before. Michael said, Phonomiac, A9 is your sidekick. Gerald said, the amazing A9 firmware is what made me pull the trigger and get the new A9. Can't wait. I'm loving the differences already, even before the updates. Now I know why it's your favourite. I told you, Gerald, people don't know the difference until they've used the camera side by side. And you do notice a difference. That's the thing. You do notice a difference there, guys. It is noticeable. And this new upgrade is going to make it leap that far ahead of what the A7 III gives you. Jake says, nah, Nikon's not going to be near as good, and I'm a Nikon shooter. The Nikon cameras are very good. I would think that the next Nikon that comes out that has dual card slots is going to be a very, very good camera, Jake. I really do. That's it. I'm going to get me some coffee too. Yes, you should. Oreo said, the difference between the A9 and the A7 R3 and the A7 III is all in the sensor. The processor reportedly is the same. Yeah, but I've got a feeling, Oreo, that they may do things in the tech to slow those sensors down. I know the processors are all the same, but they can do things to slow them down, and that may then not be able to be changed. And it probably is something to do with the sensor as well. But the interesting thing is that I believe the sensor in the A6 400 is the same as the A6 500 sensor. So it must be a combination of two things there, Oreo, I think, that's causing that to be different. J-Ro said, Phonomiac, I think they are, but they want real-time AF firmware update that's coming for the A9. You're going to wait a while before that's available as good in, say a Canon and Nikon, though, I think. Canon currently has the best lenses. I agree with you, Phonomiac. I think they do too. I definitely think Canon has the best lenses out there. Phonomiac says, the AF on the A7 III is damn good already. You're all greedy for a camera under $2,000. The A7 III focus is amazing. Chris said, looking forward to the new firmware on the A9. How awesome. That camera is awesome as it is. I know. Incredible. Rick said, do you think they will increase the megapixel in the new A9? I hope not. Lightroom does not like anything over 24 megapixel. Yeah, not sure, Rick, what they'll do there. I love 24 megapixel myself, so I hope they don't change that. I'd love them more to fix dynamic range, give me better dynamic range, things like that, better ISO. Gerald says, Oreo, the A9 sensor has an additional integrated processor. The Panda says Z8 is coming. Yes, it certainly will, and that's probably going to be amazing. Wheezy said Canon cameras are killer when you compare it to Fuji Instapic toy camera. Rui said, what are the goodies going to be for the next A7 III upgrades? Who knows what that will be for the next upgrade there. Can't wait to see it there, but I think we'll be waiting a while now. Jake's, and I'll talk about that later when we go through camera numbers. Jake said, what's the Z8 supposed to be, an entry camera or Pro model? Well, I think the next one that's going to come out will be Pro. That's my guess anyway. Phonomiac says the A9 firmware is a great update, but I think the issue is mostly Sony users have A7R3 and the A7 III, A9 for the big boys. Oh, thank you so much, John. Really appreciate that donation you just made. Really do appreciate that. Thanks, mate. Where were we? Do you know what, though, Phonomiac? I think the interesting thing is, and this is my prediction about which way this is going to go, I believe that once the firmware upgrade comes out for the A9, I think you're going to find Sony will sell a lot more of them than they have done previously. The issue at the moment is, yes, the A9 is better, but it's not drastically better. It is better, but certainly if you're dealing with sports and things like that. But if you're dealing with paying, say, $1,000 extra at the moment, a lot of people will say it's not worth it. And this is the interesting thing that I think is going to happen. People are going to say, at the moment, it's just not worth moving up for the extra to get that 20 frames per second or the amazing silent shutter. I think it is. I really do. There's things I love about it. The 1/32,000th of a second shutter alone, I would buy that for, because I love to shoot sometimes wide open in daylight. And I love that. I love the silent shutter, has no rolling shutter at all. That you can use it safely without banding and rolling shutter. So I adore that as well. The focus is better, but it's not what you'd say is drastically better. But when you're dealing with the A9 firmware that's going to come out, it then moves to a different league. And I really do think it jumps into another league compared to what the A7 III is. And I think that's going to be enough to sell a lot of those cameras. Now, I think this is a very smart move by Sony, because I bet you they probably have a stockpile of these cameras sitting there. And this is why I think they've done what they've done as well. They probably want to get rid of all of this stockpile before they bring out an A9 II for the Olympics next year. And I think this will sell very, very well. And I think it'll give new life to the camera. And I think it's going to be to the point where people will pay that extra to get that extra focus, because it really is like getting an A9 II. And that's why I think I disagree with you there. Atalia says, where was that? David, please come out with a setup video for the A9, especially when both the firmware updates are released. Yes, I will do that, actually. Also, custom button IDs and suggestions. Yep, I will do that. Michael says, one thing I can say after using the Canon EOS R is I love the ergonomics, and the new lenses are wow. They are. Look, anyone, don't be fanboys, guys. Anyone that says the Canon lenses aren't incredible, haven't looked at them. What you need to do is do yourself a favor, go into a camera shop, use one of the cameras there and take some samples and have a look at them. They are stunning. Also, the way the wheel works on the R lenses is incredible. It gives you a lot of options that you can use. They are outstanding lenses. They really are. They've always been optically incredible lenses. And I do think that they probably are better than what Sony have. I'm not banging Sony. The Sony lenses are great. I love the Sony 35 1.4. I adore the 55 1.8 that I've got. I love the 70 to 200 f4. I'm still not going to turn around and say they're better lenses than what Canon have. They're not. But the bodies just aren't in the same league. The Sony bodies are particularly 3 years ahead of anything that Canon have out there. And that's the difference. Gerald says, Photomech, I traded my A7 III and A6 500 with the Sony rebates now. Got the A9 for a few $100. Cost me less than my A7 R3. And I don't blame you, Gerald, and I bet you don't regret it one little bit, and you certainly won't once the new update comes out for the A9. John gave me $10. Thanks so much, John. Canon need to pay those RP with a poor dynamic range. Oh, no, I can't understand them using that sensor, honestly. Jake says, well, the D6 is already coming, so I don't think they will cannibalize it. Plus, who has $6,000 for a camera? Not me. I want like an $1,800 camera. I'm going to talk about cameras at the end of this, and we'll talk about how many cameras people are selling and stuff. John said, coffee money. Thank you so much, John. Colin said, where was that? Colin said, I'm getting ready to buy more Sony soon. Photomech says, yeah, Gerald, yes, but that was after a bunch of rebates and discounts. The A9 cost $1,500. Venom said, I'm hoping the A7 III gets discounted and I will grab that, not feeling the Canon. I'm not sure now, Venom, that the A7 III will be discounted much after that release, because I don't think Sony are going to be threatened by it. The only camera that may affect is the A6 500. People may get that instead of getting the A6 500, they might buy the Canon. It's certainly not going to affect the A7 III though. It's way better camera for that money. Michael said they need to put that Canon RP back in the Cracker Jack box. I'm going to talk about the 150 to 500 shortly. It's not Tamron. Oh, yes, it is Tamron. Oreo said the current A9 price is about the same price of the A7R3 when it came out. Yep, exactly. Gordon, any chance Sony's response will surpass and mass-produce the XD linear focus system for all their new lenses in 2019? That's the lens focus system in the 400 2.8. I don't think so, but you never know. Where are we? Because I want to move on to the next story. Rick said, do you have the Sony 24105 f4? Was thinking about it. No, I don't, Rick. I'm happy with the 28 to 75 and the 70 to 200 f4. I don't really need that lens. I'm just trying to see where else. All right, let's go into the next story. Casper said, Manny and Jason jumped ship, gone from Sony looking for more money, I guess. Well, they're saying they're going to stay open, Casper, so I'm not sure they jumped ship. I think they just said they want to review other camera gear that's out there. I hope that's the true story. That's the thing that I'm hoping it is. All right, so let's go to the next one here, because this was interesting. There's a new patent that's come out for Tamron. And they're saying that it's the EF version, so it is an EF version, and it's the 150 to 500 5.6 full frame lens mount that's been done there as well. So usually if the patents are going to come out, it's going to happen. We know for certain that Tamron are starting to release or think about other lenses. My prediction is that the first lens that we're going to see from Tamron is going to be the 70 to 200. I still think that's going to be the next lens that we'll see from Tamron. And then obviously this 100 to 500 5.6 will be a great lens if they're going to bring it out. I think that Tamron has sold the 28 to 75 so well. I mean, the lens sales have been so good for that camera, for that lens, I mean, that Tamron would be foolish not to go into other lenses. If they can give us something like the G1, 70 to 200 f2.8, something in the 16 to 35 realm, and then you've got that golden trinity of the 16 to 35, 28 to 75, and then also the 70 to 200 Tamron lens. What a great thing for Sony to have, or Sony users to have, if you don't want to spend on G-Master lenses. I love my Tamron 28 to 75, and if they can give us as good lenses in the 70 to 200, it may be a lens that I consider purchasing for when I do dance shoots and things like that where I need an f2.8 lens. So I am in a market for a faster zoom lens, and that's the one I'm sort of waiting on actually. I don't want to buy the G-Master due to the expense of that and how often I'd use it, but I certainly would like a 70 to 200 f2.8, and that G1 is incredibly sharp. It was sharper than the Nikon 70 to 200 V2 that I used to use. So I'd love to know what they're going to do there. I do think it will happen sometime this year. Hopefully Tamron will let me review it like I did last time before it was announced, so that I can get some reviews out to you guys, and I'll be excited. I haven't heard anything yet though. I probably wouldn't be able to tell you anyway. But I do think that it's going to happen sometime this year, hopefully in the first half of the year. So I'm going to open that up to chat quickly, just to see if there's anything about that. The Panda said Sony isn't really worried about the RP, but A6400 is better. So Canon shooters, time to move to the A6400. Colin said, I bought the A7 III and the Tamron lens because of you. They should pay you. Thanks, Colin. I wish they would. I'm not sponsored by Tamron at all, though. If Tamron, but I'm not. But I do adore that lens. Casper said it's all about the money. Gerald said Phonomic. I'm not sure that's Gerald and Phonomic arguing, I think. Jake said, yeah, trade-ins are terrible value like pawn shop. Yeah, they are. They're terrible. That's why I very rarely sell used gear. Phonomic said exactly, Jake. That's what Gerald was talking about. Rick said the 28 to 75 you referred to is the kit lens. No, it's not, Rick. Not the Tamron lens I'm talking about. Not the Sony lenses. Yes, I had that, and that was one lens that I sold. The 28 to 75 Tamron is not a kit lens. It's an amazing lens. It's f2.8. The 28 to 75 kit lens is an f4 version. Yeah, it's not very good. I didn't like that lens much at all. 42 Pro says, I hope the 70 to 200 f2.8 and the 15 to 35 f2.8 FE versions comes out shortly. Maybe WPPI. Yeah, I hope so too. I'd love those lenses. 70 to 400 wouldn't hurt my feeling either. Michael said, more E-mount, and overall E-mount line is becoming nice. It is, isn't it, Michael? We're very blessed now in the Sony line that we can buy so many lenses. The only thing I suppose is Sony have neglected the APS-C mount a little bit, but we have got lenses like Sigma Produce and things like that that make up for it. And you can use your full frame lenses too on there. So I suppose that's, that's another thing that you could think about. But they do need to give a little bit of love for the APS-C line. Hopefully, if they bring out an A7000, they may release a couple of APS-C lenses for that then. Where were we? Casper said, I'll leave my 70 to 200 G Master on my A9. We all know Casper loves his G Masters. 42 Pro said, Rick Menton notes the 2.8 lens from Tamron. Yes, that's what I was talking about. Terry said, based on the pattern, this is not a very good lens and it will be soft at the long end. Which one are you talking about there, Terry? J Rose says, usually they tend to be terrible values with the exception of the trade-ins. Are you talking about trade-ins? Yep. Oreo said the 150 to 500 lens with fixed aperture is something amazing. Yeah, I'd like to have a look at that. Great wildlife lens, that's for sure. Gerald said, oh, they're still arguing. Hero says, True Colin, I got the 70 to 200 f4 because of him and I love it too. Oh, I love that lens, Hero. And I'll be using that tonight. I really do love that 70 to 200 f4. I adore it as a matter of fact. The only time that I need, and I think the f4 is not good enough, is like I said, sometimes I do dance work and I do have some big clients for dance work. And if I'm doing dance when there's a concert on, for instance, sometimes I need a faster lens than f4 without upping the ISO to really quite high. So having a 2.8 lens there is a big advantage, and that's where I'd like a 2.8 lens. And that might be some reason for me to get the 70 to 200 Tamron when it's announced. Shawla said, hey David, wish you could come to WPPI. Are you planning to coming onto the States? Yes, I am. I was going to come this year. I'm still not sure. I may come out later this year. If not, I'll definitely be doing some travel next year. I'd like to come to the US and then also to Europe in the same trip. So I might do that late this year or early next year. Any guess on how large the 1500 to 500 will be? No. Steve said, have the Tamron 70 to 200 G2 EF mount. Works well on the A7 III, very sharp. They are, Steve. The G2 lenses are incredible. That's what I meant, the G2, yeah. Ivan says, I do like the size, the new camera 70 to 200 for the R mount is crazy small. I know, how small is that lens? My gas got me in trouble last night. MJ said, why, what did you buy, MJ? Michael said, laugh out loud, David. We all know that Casper gives love to a G Master. Yeah, I know. And Gerald and Photomia love to argue as well. It cracks me up. Terry says, I'm talking about the Tamron 15 to 50 pattern. It doesn't say how large it is, actually. It might if you go into how deep it is, but it doesn't say. Rick said, yeah, my mistake. I thought you were talking about the Sony one. Yep, the Sony one is not a very good lens, the f4 version. Oreo said, David Oster, I bought the 70 to 200 f4, waiting for it to... Oh, you did buy it, Oreo. You're going to love it. You really will love that lens. It's fantastic. I've never regretted buying that lens, and I'll never sell it. Casper said, stop stirring the pot, Ike. Hero Shot said, if you come to South Florida, I'll buy you 2 coffees. Woohoo! Photo Neox says, Nikon. Angel says, Hello, David. How about the Sigma 70 to 200? Yeah, I haven't used that though, Angel, so I can't comment much about that. It seems Sigma make great lenses though. They really do. And when they bring out the FE versions, that could also be an option as well. And I'd love to try that lens if they bring out an FE version of that too. Venom said, the new Canon 70-200 RF is so small. Why the hell is their 28-75 so gigantic? Isn't that's because of the aperture size. If you were coming to the US, come in October for Photo Plus. Oh, cool. I should do that, then I can claim it all on tax. That's it. All right, so let's go back to here. Next story. I'm going to show PhotoMeX comment. All right, so let's go to the next one. This is quite interesting too, because I noticed that this is an SR5. Sony have actually, Alpha have said that this Chinese company are producing a 50mm, and they've got the 1.1 question mark there that it's actually done. And the reason why they're saying that, because it's showing F1 down here. So it's going to be interesting to see. I remember Sony saying there's no reason why they can't produce an f1 lens, but they probably will produce an f1.2 lens. And I still do believe that Sony will produce an f1.2 lens as bragging rights, and it's going to come out eventually. We just don't know when. But this one is the first time I've seen a f1.1 or f1 lens come out that has autofocus. There are versions of the 0.95 lenses that connect onto the Sony, but they are all manual focus. And this is going to be really interesting, because this basically will shut up people that say the mount in the Sony is no good. You can't have fast aperture glass. Well, this basically will blow that out of the water the second that they show this working. How well it works, I don't know. It does say, I think, that the video autofocus was a bit slow. I think I read somewhere. But it's going to be interesting. At least it has it, and I can't wait for this to be released, just to have that out there. And I am definitely looking for something to come out with Sony particularly to bring out a 1.2 lens, just for bragging rights and to shut up all the fanboys that basically say that, you know, you can't do it on the Sony cameras. So this is just an interesting story. It's just got Chinese manufacturer, so they're not saying yet who the manufacturer is, but they are saying that it's actually an SR5, which usually means it comes true. So very, very interesting. F50 1.0. I'm not going to open up to questions because I'm going to keep going, and then I'll open up to questions. Last story is, and I mentioned this with Aaron the other day, but I just thought I'd talk to it quickly on here because it's a different audience. I wanted to talk about the camera manufacturers quickly. Basically, the number of cameras that are decreasing. When you look at these totals that have come out, basically saying here that it's had a 24% drop in cameras shipped in 2018. And they're saying a 7% increase in lenses shipped in 2018. And this is why I believe companies like Canon and Sony, who have expensive lenses, are being very smart, because the cameras are dropping, but they're making more or selling more lenses than the bodies. The bodies are dropping, and this is really quite interesting when you look at it. If you look at these graphs, and a lot of people do like looking at graphs more than just data, you can see how much camera sales have dropped. Total of cameras manufactured by year in 2010, you can look, it was 121, and that's in millions, and it's now down to 19 in 2018. And you can see that lenses overall, though, have been fairly consistent, apart from 2012, which was a massive jump there. You can see that it was 2010 was 22%. You can see it's been around that level since 2010. So this is a really interesting argument. And I've said to people all along that lens purchases are for life, and bodies that you buy, camera bodies, are disposable because people always change their camera bodies, but they very rarely change their lenses. You know, if you buy a beautiful 85 1.2, you're going to keep that for years and years to come. Unless it breaks, there's no reason to get another lens. And that's why lenses tend to sell so well. People just keep them for so long. I mean, it sort of sounds counterintuitive that people keep them for so long, but obviously lenses are still selling very, very well. And they are bringing out different lenses, like Canon have just announced all of these lenses. So people now will have to buy those lenses for that system. Sony have announced lots of different lenses now for the system, and people are buying those lenses as well. You know, you're getting Tamron lenses coming out. You're getting Sigma lenses being released. So it really is interesting that lenses have increased. And that's fascinating. So cameras 24% decrease, lenses are 7%. 7% decrease in lenses. So it's way less, but it's still at 18%, nowhere near the drop overall. You know, and if you look at all these figures, you can just sort of see how much cameras have dropped since 2010 to 2018. You can see here that digital SLR, the red was non-interchangeable lens cameras. So you're dealing with cameras like, you know, if you're dealing with it, you know, you're looking at sort of this type of camera. Your point and shoot is what they're talking about there. You can see in 2010, they were selling 108 million point and shoot cameras. You know, and you're looking at digital SLRs, was 12.9, so very small compared to the actual point and shoot. But you can see an unbelievable decline to 2018, where you've got 8.6 non-interchangeable lenses, and you've got 10.8 in the digital mirrorless. So in other words, they've outstripped the point and shoot cameras. And you can see that now that mobile phones have just destroyed point and shoot cameras, and you can see those in that figures. It really has been decimated if you look at that compared to anything else. So you can see overall though that the camera sales have been reasonably constant, but what you're starting to see now is that mirrorless is starting to overtake the digital SLR, and that shows up in these figures that we'll look at a little bit further on. What else do we look at here? I think this was this figure here, actually. Yeah, you're looking at the figure here. If we look at this figure here, it's saying here that in 2013, you had 74% point and shoots. You had 21% digital SLRs, and you had 5% mirrorless, whereas now you've got 22% mirrorless cameras. And remember, this is 2018. You've got 34% digital SLRs and 44% point and shoot. I would say in 2019, the end of 2019, mirrorless cameras is going to overtake both of these two. Mirrorless cameras will be number one, and then digital SLRs will be number two, and point and shoot will probably be number three. But it's really interesting when you look at those sort of articles, what's going on there. All right, guys, so let's open it up to the chat, because I'm going to open it up to questions. Just before I start questions, just to let you know, just in case if anyone is interested, I'm having a shoot in Melbourne tonight with Kiara. Kerry's going to be there with me, and we're going to go around Melbourne and shoot some different locations. She'll have a whole stack of different outfits and stuff like that, and I'm going to film it as well. If you are interested in coming and you're free tonight in Melbourne, please drop me a message, and I can let you know what time and where we'll be to meet me. So if you do want to follow us around, obviously meet myself, Kiara, Kerry. So pop down and join us, and you'll have a fun night watching us shoot, all having a bit of fun. So stay tuned for that. And also, before I go to questions as well, please don't forget to tune into Aaron and my show on the Tuesday for you Americans and Europeans. It's Wednesday Australia time, 12 o'clock Melbourne time. Please join us for that. We've had a great couple of shows up already. If you haven't watched it, scroll back and view it. It's more open to everything. We also show some of our work. Aaron is an amazing videographer as well, and he often discusses video things as well. So please join us on that show too. So let's open it up to questions. Let me just clear that layer. Photomix says, for the record, me and Gerald are friends on Facebook. I know you guys are. It's all in fun. Gordon says, hey David, have you tried the new Sony imaging software that was updated late January? Is the tethering feature any good? No, I haven't, Gordon, because I don't do tethering yet. I do intend to go down that side of it eventually because I'd like to show live shoots for my Patreon subscribers. And that's one reason why I've got Patreon now, and I am going to start to shoot live things sometime this year, and I'll be starting to shoot live, and that will be going directly to Patreon. So I am interested in looking at that stuff. I have purchased Capture One as well. Jeff said, with the new Pani Alliance decreased Sigma S incentive to further E-mounts. Maybe. Not sure. I don't think so, though. Dan said, hi David, I'm late again. Just had to nip down and buy some coffees for Friday night. And I'll also be having a few coffees tonight as well, once we have dinner with Kiara and everyone. Michael said that 1.1 lens is going to look like a foggy eyeglass. It probably will, Michael. It'd be interesting to see if it's any good, that's for sure. Photomix said, Boca, Boca, Boca. J Rose said, Michael, JP is probably not going to be sharp wide open. Probably isn't going to be. We'll have to wait and see. Gerald said, waiting for Sigma to change my 150 to 600 5.6 to native E-mount. Cool. Let us know how it goes, Gerald. Photomix says, if you try to shoot 1.1, sharpness is probably not high on your priorities. Yeah, exactly. I'm laughing because Michael says it's probably going to look like VHS tape. I love it. Where are we? Photomix says, what a time to be alive. We paid $1,200 for the Nikon D90. I had the Nikon D90 kit. That was my first digital SLR as well, Photomiac, back in 2009. Now at EOS RP is only $1,300. Instagram photographers everywhere are rejoicing. They certainly will be. And I think it will sell well. I'm like you, Photomic. I think it will sell well. People might bag it, but I reckon they'll sell bucket loads of it. Greg said, are you aware that you aren't showing the chart? Oh, no. Did I do that again? Sometimes the program doesn't update. I'm quickly going back to the chart. Sorry if I didn't show that. I'll show it just quickly again for you. These were the charts talking about the decrease, but it was these charts that I was mentioning as well. That was 2010. That was your point and shoot. The 12.9 is your digital SLR, and you can see the difference going to 2018 as well. And if you're looking at the things here, this was the chart that I was showing, which was the 5% in 2013 was mirrorless, 21% was the digital SLR, and 74% point and shoot. You can see in 2018 it's 22% mirrorless, 34% digital SLR, and 44% point and shoot. And like I said, my prediction 2019, now that Nikon are on board, now that Canon are on board with mirrorless, mirrorless is going to jump those two for sure. So sorry about that. Sometimes it just doesn't update. I should really always check over the side there. 42 Pro says, cameras like the A9, A7R3 and the A7 III have satisfied their own owners, and the other manufacturers haven't forced Sony's hand to release new cameras. Rick says, drop in sales saddens me. It does me too. I like to see robust industry. I used to shoot Pentax. Wish they could come back in a big way. Well, I do think looking at those figures, if you keep dropping, there's 24%. If it's another 24% next year, not everyone's going to survive. And that is going to be a definite thing that's going to happen. Sooner or later, some camera manufacturers are going to merge. It's going to happen. G'day, Dion. Good to see you in here. You should live stream the shoot. That would be awesome. I will if I have time, Hero. I might live stream some. Dion saying, damn, already committed. Yeah, if anyone's free, let me know. Michael says, I have a question. When is someone going to be fired at Canon for suggesting they take out 24p? I haven't watched Camera Conspiracy's video on it yet. I'll have to watch that later. I don't know if I'll have time today because I've got to get stuff ready for the shoot tonight. Fathom Rocker says, newbies just to see the name Canon and buy it based on the name. That's exactly true. That is so true what happens out there. J Rose says, usually true with the rare exception of maybe the Canon 50 1.2 RF. I have a Voigtlander 40 1.2 FE, not sharp at 1.2, though nice rendering and bokeh. I had the Voigtlander 10 to 16 to, I can't remember what it was. It was a 10.5, I think it was, and that was sharp wide open. That was on micro 4/3 though. But the 51.2 is sharp wide open that I tried for the Canon. It was very sharp. Photomix says, I'm doing a live about the EOS RP and how it will win for Canon based on the facts. Fathom Rocker says, oh, can't wait. Angel says, David, you have to try the Samyang Rockion 35 1.4. It's awesome. Yes, I've heard it's very, very good. The problem is, the reason why I always like to try things that I haven't got, Angel, and I've got the Sony 35 1.4, which I love. I'm using the Sony 35 2.8 now on the A7 III, A7R2, I mean, on here, and I love that lens. So I've already got 2 lenses, so that's the reason why I haven't tried that, and it probably is very, very good, but I've already got 2 35s. I'd like to try some other things I haven't got, like the Sigma 105 and the Sigma 135. Fathom Rocker said, yeah, I usually try to research most purchases, but YouTube is full of Canon propaganda, so I ended up with the Canon. Photomix says, I teach high schoolers photography, and the cameras that preschooler uses are all Canon T5s. Yep, exactly, and I did the same thing. The first kid's intro into photography is a Canon. It's a lasting impression for some, and the only. Yeah, I agree. Rick said, Photomic, true that the Hasselblad medium format is discontinued. Yes, it has been discontinued. It doesn't mean they might not release another version of that, but yeah, it has been. Dion says, how much of the decrease is due to the world economy slowing down? Well, it could be, Dion. I think it's more probably the fact that the camera has reached a plateau at the moment. And they just haven't been anything that has been just amazing come out of the box to make people jump ship. And I think people are holding on now a little bit longer than what they used to. The thing is, and I do believe this is the case as well, people are waiting for the really good, and I'm not saying this to upset Photomic, but I think people are really waiting on Nikon to produce a more professional camera for dual card slots, because like I said, I wouldn't use that camera alone due to the fact that it hasn't got dual card slots. The Canons, there's just nothing released in the Canon side that really excites me yet at this stage. And Sony, we're still waiting on the A7S III to come out and the A7000. And I do still believe a lot of people are holding off on that regard to see what's announced. Camera sales may get a jump if they release something amazing out there. But I also think now technology has probably reached a plateau where what we've got is good enough at this stage. And there hasn't been such an amazing upgrade to anything, you know, where you'd go, wow, that's just incredible. And the world economy may be having an effect too, Dion. Yes, it might. Camera conspiracies, merging video might have to be I can't even say it. I've had too much coffee. So said 42 megapixel Sony A7R2 is now $1,500, and that's a great camera. I'm using that now. I mean, this video on this camera is outstanding. It really is good, and I love it, and I've still got it. I haven't bought the A7R2, R3. I may buy the A7R4, though, that comes out. I didn't see the need to upgrade from my A7R2. It's still good enough for what I use it for, but I might jump to the A7R4. I love that camera. $1,500 is a great buy. Fathom Rocker says, our alien overlords gives us Sony and all the technology, but don't deem us worthy for a flippy screen. Michael says, Photomic, there is no doubt the camera is going to sell like Pokemon cards at $1,300. It will. It'll sell like crazy. I've got no doubt about it. So no one wants those trash skin tones from the A7R. Oh, Photomic, honestly. There's nothing wrong with the skin tones from the A7R2. I use it all the time. Never had anyone complain. Aria said, keep an eye on the upcoming Samyang 85 1.4. Yes, that's true. It might be a good lens. That could be one that I could try because it's a point of difference, Oreo. Rick says, camera sales is slow due to the silly mobile phones. Maybe. Phones are also getting so good too that could be a definite problem. Gerald said competition will get even more heated for the shrinking market. Investing in good glass is always the best strategy. Bodies are disposable. Now, the interesting thing is, guys, and this is very important that you understand this, that the issue is too that the slowing market has big implications for R&D. Because if there's less sales going on, you can bet your bottom dollar that R&D is going to decrease, which means we're going to see less cameras released, which means Canon will release less cameras, Sony will release less cameras. And that's probably what's going to happen. The timeline is going to start to pan out. That may be also the reason why we haven't seen the A7S III released at this stage, or the A7000. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in that regard, because if sales do drop, we certainly will not get the competition and R&D development like we've had, and sensors will be a lot longer. I mean, why are Canon still using a sensor from 4 years ago? That is nuts. If you're talking about technology, 4 years is ancient if you're dealing with sort of technology in that regard. And to be using a sensor from 4 years ago in that camera is, you know, like I said, it might be about time Canon starts using Sony sensors. Fathom Rocker said, Photomiak, all you got to do is use your HLG3 profile for those nice skin tones. Where is the fun in that, Maestro? Kenneth said, I've got to go in a minute, guys, because I've got to go and get ready for tonight's shoot. Kenneth said, how much different did you find, if you found on the Sony A7, A6400 versus the A9, especially wildlife photography? Well, I can't tell because I haven't got the A6400 and I don't shoot wildlife, so I'm not the person to ask that. The A9 is going to be a clearly much better camera than the A6400. The advantage with the A6400 is you're going to have extra reach, which can be an advantage for wildlife if you don't want to buy really expensive lenses. And the A6400 is going to be a fairly good camera for that. It's not going to beat an A9 though, nowhere near it. Gerald says, how long will you wait for the A7S III or jump on the A7000 if it comes out first and has 4K 60? Gerald, if the A7000 has everything I might need, I might just jump and buy that and then not get the A7S III this year. I only need one camera. Running a business, I do have to be careful that I don't overcommit and spend more than what I need to spend. I don't need another camera, more than one. I need one extra camera for video. So if the A7000 has everything I need, I will probably buy it and then get an A7S next year when I trade something in or get rid of something, and then I'd buy that to replace something that I've got. At this stage, having the A7R2, the A9, the A7 III, the A6500 and the A6300, I've got enough cameras, but I just need one more video camera that gives me 4K 60p. That's really all I'm waiting on at this stage, and a fold-out screen. If I can get that in the A7000, I'll probably buy that. Charbuck said, slowing market only due to laser camera marketing. People, they should have killed the iPhone long ago. Last few questions, guys. No, Canon never stopped releasing. They just stopped development. Oh, Manuel says, do you have the backlog of these old sensors, why they put them in the latest mirrorless? No, I've got no idea why they're using these, Canon particularly using these old sensors, because Sony are kicking their butt in the sensor department. They really are. Photomix says, right, who else is going to pick on if I wasn't here? We love you, mate. Rick said, always informative hanging with you, Dave. Enjoy your shoot. I will, Rick. It's going to be great fun tonight. He was a cool guy, going to be like us, Maestro. Fathom Rocker says, they're just talking to each other. Sony should skip the A7S III and drop the A9S instead. All right, guys, I better go. It's been, what have we been talking, an hour and 45 minutes. I'm going to get slammed again for this. It's going to be shocking. With all those cameras, why don't you buy a dedicated video camera? Rick, I don't want a video camera because I like the depth of field full frame gives me. That's why I don't buy it. You're talking about an FS7? Too big. I like the small cameras, and only the full frame sort of APS-C cameras can give me that for what I want to use. That's why I won't be going with a video camera. Video cameras look like video cameras. They don't look like full frame cameras, and that's why I won't be buying a dedicated video camera, Rick. Alright guys, that's all for now. Catch you all soon for the next video. Don't forget to tune in for Aaron and my myself, the live show next Tuesday, your time guys. It'll be on Aaron's channel next week. And apart from that, I'll see you all soon. Really looking forward to showing the results I get from tonight with Kiara. Catch you guys, have a great weekend.